about the siphon. Split them up like a hyphen. All right. Hey, oh my God. So I just got an email from a job where I was supposed to be a janitor and I got rejected. Oh my gosh, I'm doing so well. I started talking about race and shit like that. You know, talking about race and black stuff and shit like that. And I remember looking at the characters and I said, is this a white person? And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, I remember having this conversation with my dad a while ago. I was talking to him and I was defending anime, right? I'm not even like an anime head. I don't know. I just feel like being argumentative. I don't know. And I remember I was just like, yeah, it's kind of weird. My dad was like, Asian people, they never want to sit there and show anything of any characters that look like themselves. And I said, that's not true. And that's not true. That's not, I was just like, no, I didn't know much about the subject, but I was like, no, like they are, they look like people who are Asian. And he said, well, no, when you see them, a good amount of them look white, right? I said, that's not true. That's not something that's true. That's not a true thing. Hello, this is Alex. So apparently the software didn't want to work. I'm still getting used to CapCut, so this is just a transition. Okay. Oh, it's still all right. It's still going. Okay. But after a while, years down the line, I kind of had this feeling where I was like, a lot of the anime I see, it has a character that is white, then it has characters that look Asian. And then the thing is, I would kind of be like, I'm not really sure why there's so many white people in this particular show when it's about something that's culturally significant to a particular type of Asian culture. So, I keep looking for like white people on, in anime. And it keeps showing me like it shows me some of them, but it keeps showing me like I don't know, like white like anime characters with white hair. And I'm like, no, white people. Like it shows me one thing, like kind of what Asian people were talking about later in the video where they were like, America, which is problematic in itself, right? America. But other than that, it's not really showing anybody who's like Asian. I mean, like who's like white. So I don't know. It's like, oh, white people in anime, white hair. It's like, no, you know what I mean, or does it? And I was like, well, yeah, there were white people back in the day that was, integrating with Asian people. So I guess it is sticking to the historical facts. And of course, different types of Asian people would know more about that than I would as a Black American. But it was something where I was just kind of confused. So I decided to look it up. I said, why are there so many types of, white people in, Asian stories? Why do they always seem like white people? And this is from 13 years ago. So we're going back in time. We're going back in time. Why anime characters typically look white, Caucasian, European, and not Asian? Now, the girls, they gagged him in the comments. I've always been interested in anime, but I never understood why most anime characters look like this, but not this. Okay, let me click. What do you mean look like this? Not secure. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know what his examples were, but I'm sure it was Asian, white. Can someone explain to me the stylistic choices that caused this? Okay, so edit. Wow, I didn't expect this topic to be so big. I suppose I should have been more clear in my original question. The main reason that anime characters appeared white to me was because of their skin color. Now, I'm not trying to insinuate that all people from Asia have to be the color of Filipinos or um, indigenous people, not indigenous, Indonesians. Oh my gosh. Merely that my perception was was one of uncertainty. Thanks to the excellent video posted by Turbulent Turtle, I have a much better sense of this. Westerners are conditioned to view race more by skin color as opposed to facial structure, which is the general model for anime character design and not skin color. I guess this whole question and thread that follows simply goes to show how diverse the representation of popular culture really are. Oh, that's why. Oh, so you guys see race by facial, but well, well, then they would still be white because. Okay, well, you know what? I'm gonna look into it. I got to do more research. Let's look at some of the comments because I'm so confused. In Japan, it is taken for granted that most anime characters, unless otherwise stated. Y'all gonna see me stutter, and I don't care about you. As far as why they have big round eyes, the answer is that most anime, as we know, it is influenced by the work of one man, Osamu Tezuka, 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 Tuzaki. The Asians gonna eat me up with this one. Osamu Tuzaki. I hate it because his name sounds cool, but yeah, I butchered it. Who is known as the father of anime, period. Kind of the Walt Disney of anime in a way, period. And actually, as a kid, Tezuka was inspired by Disney's early works like Steamboat Willie and Fisher's Betty Boop. So when he began drawing, to him, the big round faces and round eyes were just a characteristic of cartoon characters in general. Those things were not meant to be a comment on ethnicity. Well, that's not okay. They still are not. As far as hair, eye color, well, a lot of Japanese people have brown hair rather than black, and lots lighten their hair. Otherwise, I think that it's just done to make things interesting. Okay, okay, this is interesting. Okay, because I was thinking to myself, I was like, it's not really the eyes. Maybe the examples that he used, the person used, they show eyes, and that was the big moment. Because when I look at and I'm like, no, it's not the eyes. You know, when I look at anime characters, I'm not thinking this person's white because of the eyes. I'm thinking they're white because they look white. I mean, you know, they have white skin. They have, you know, certain features that maybe you would think would be perceived as a white person. And I assume as somebody who, you know, if you're in the animation industry, if you're somebody who, you know, does a lot of different characters, I'm pretty sure they're aware that they look white. Like, you know. So I don't know. I don't know. Short answer, they don't. You're projecting what you consider to be normal onto them. Long answer, and this is something I think the page not found. Girl, this is what happens when you go to something that's a while back. But I recall once reading a fascinating and lengthy article on this subject. I'm not doing it justice, but consider that when one draws a simple circle as a face with two dots for eyes and a simple curved line for a mouth, people are going to instinctively interpret that resilient face as a bearing the facial characteristics of the people he is accustomed to being around. Western European would be inclined to see that face as Caucasian, whereas the African would feel it has Negroid features. I don't see how. Okay, this is a roundabout way of saying that really only Westerners actually think anime characters look Caucasian. In reality, they just anime genericism. The style of art depicts humans in general as having dinner plate eyes and lighter skin and neon colored eyes. It's not Caucasian, it's anime. But, okay. 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 I don't know. I don't know. It just feels like a cop out. Like I don't know. Like okay, so again, they're going back to the eyes, and it's not really the eyes. It's the eyes, but it's not the eyes. Like when I'm looking at a white anime character, like let me look up my what I'm trying to say because I think people are caught up on the eyes, and it's not really the eyes that makes them look white. It's like I don't know. Like okay. And maybe the voice acting also plays a part into creating the identity of the character. what we may assume as a white voice or a black voice. I find this not even to be offensive. I find it to be actually kind of interesting, the interpretations of this, because I'm trying to, as a black American, I'm trying to figure out, I'm trying to convert my mind and trying to figure out how they don't see it as white. I'm trying to, because all I can see is a white person. Okay. Yeah, okay. He's a white person. That is a white person too. That is also a white person. I mean, blue eyes, the hair, the small nose, barely any lips. No offense to white people. There's some white people with lips, but I mean, I'm thinking. I'm not really thinking Asian. Like you could say maybe him, because when you look at this character, she's white. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that's awful, that's bad. But it is something where you're just kind of like, I do know, I notice a lot of white people, especially white girls, within anime. And I guess putting on my black American race, we always think about race type of thing. I do kind of think, I'm like, I wonder what is the mindset of looking at some of these characters. And I'm like, I think it's very interesting because maybe the society they live in certain areas, it is homogenous, right? And so you see so much of yourself or people who look like you in society. And so you may not see this as something that is concerning when looking in media. But if you're somebody who grew up in a particular type of area where you had a certain history and it involves race to a certain point, you may not even be upset about it. You may not sit there and be like, oh my God, and protest about it. But you may think, like, just have like a little intrusive thought, like, that's interesting. This is a white woman. But then see, here's the gag. Okay, so I couldn't find any of the clips that I wanted, but there was something that I wanted to show because it's also a Miyazaki film, right? And it's his most recent, where, but. Does he not look Asian to you? Like, I'm trying to figure out, what is it? What is it that's causing me to look at him and say, that's Asian? Versus the older movie and the older design and being like, that is a white woman, right? And I think it's so many factors. I think it's really just people are going to be upset about it, because of the historical, reality of stereotypes and racism towards Asian eyes. But really, when I looked at Asian people, right, and I swear, God, I'm not trying to say this rude. I swear I'm not trying to say this rude. When I look at Asian people, they have similar skin tones to white people, right? Right? Because in America, in the West, right, the crazy Americans, it's all about the skin, right? And so in this social construct that is race, let's say it like that, when I see white Asian people, they do have a similar skin tone. However, one of the biggest factors of showing that they are Asian is the eyes, right? And that's how it was in history. They would take certain things that black people have, big noses or lips or certain types of, all the other things that were not ideal to European standards. And they would highlight that, put that in the media and make fun of it and demean people of that particular type of race and so on and so forth. You know the history, unfortunately. And so I understand not wanting to lean into that in analyzing your media. Or maybe I can sit there and understand feeling like I don't want to analyze the authentication of my Asianness by my eyes. However, in real life, when I'm looking at someone who is Asian, I am looking at their eyes. Now, I'm not sitting here like overly inspecting, like, are you Asian? How Asian are you? No, I'm not doing it. That's weird as fuck. But I may glance and be like, oh, that's an Asian person. Because maybe it's the eye shape, maybe it's how far his eyes are. I don't know. But that's an Asian dude. That's an Asian boy. That's a little Asian boy. I'm not sitting here thinking he's white. And there's plenty of white people with black hair, right? Those are Asian grandmas. That's, those are Asian grandmas. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Because I've been sitting here like, that's an Asian person. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, this whole film is built off, this whole film shows Asian people, right? But when I look at some other pieces of media, I look at it and I say, I'm like, that's not really an Asian person. Am I tripping? Nothing wrong with it, but I'm just saying that's a white girl. But then you go to here, that's an Asian boy. And so I really want to know how Asian people see it, because they probably just like, it's just, it's characters. They probably not even thinking about it in that depth. But I just noticed it more and more in like old anime, new anime. And it wouldn't just be like, oh, because they have big eyes, right? It's not like, no, that's not quite it. That's not quite what we're looking at. It's not because they have big eyes. No, because here in America, we have plenty of characters that have big eyes. And you could tell not only because of the skin tone, but because of other features that is on their face. Like Moana has, her eyes are apart in certain ways. They're kind of slanted, almond shaped, but not too much. Not to the point where, I don't say too much, but not to the point where you may think it's like a different ethnicity. She's brown. She has a big nose. She has a prominent upper lip, right? And so when you look at her, it's not just the skin tone. The other features on her face are additional to the skin tone. The skin tone is pretty much the verification of, oh, this is someone who's of a different ethnicity, different culture, different race. But the features on the face also do matter when we're talking about different types of characters, right? Even in American media, right? The same with Maribel, right? The same with her character. She has a more prominent nose, She has lips that are also full. Her eyes are also the classic Disney. But her hair is different texture. She has, eyebrows. Like, there's different things added into that to show this is somebody of a different type of, racial, cultural makeup. And so I do think that character design also plays a part, right? And then, of course, I don't know how Asian people feel about Mulan's character design. I don't know if they're like, but it is one of the most, the older versions of, I guess you would say a respectable Disney, representation of Asian characters, right? Obviously, one of the most notable. And so, she has those eyes that you will associate with Asian people, right? And, I don't know. I mean, she's always going to be that girl for me. I'm not talking about the remakes. I'm talking about, the first. She's always going to be that girl for me. But I do remember just sitting there looking at a lot of these characters, looking at a lot of these shows every now and then, and just being like, there is a lot of prominence within, anime where they just have a lot of mostly white girl characters. And I know there's kind of like this little history, and I never really understood it. So, Asians, help me out, right? Get in the comments, read me for filth. But I never really understood like this weird thing with like skin bleaching. I wouldn't say skin bleaching or skin lightener. I never really understood it from someone who was so visibly black, right? I'm not even the darkest shade, but when you are a black person, there's so much to that is just so, there's no room for suggestion, right? There's no room, there's no ambiguity, right? As they would say. It's just straight up black, right? And so when thinking about a lot of how certain Asian societies work, I was seeing certain things in social media where they would have like these things where they would have constantly have Asian women, and then they would transform and it would be blue contacts, and blonde hair. And I'll be like, and then they will use a filter to lighten their skin tone, even though their skin tone is already naturally lighter. Like, I'm not even saying just compared to me. I'm saying even if you put a good amount of Asian people, some Asian people, I say that, because there's different types of Asian people, right? But you put some Asian people with next to white people, I'm like, it's damn near the same skin tone. So why do you have to lighten some more, right? And it just goes to show the different types of conditioning. You know, that's why I talk about white supremacy and other stuff like that. Because I'm not going to say I know I'm the end. I know so much about the issues of racism, the issues of colorism, the issues of so many different things racially and culturally with every single person outside of my culture. I'm not going to say that, right? Because that would be untruthful. But I just have noticed this particular type of trend where I'm like, oh, she look like a white woman. Okay, so why are anime characters, girl? See, why are anime characters white? Oh, see, I know I'm not the only one. So, are they white? Are anime characters white, and why realistic fan art is problematic? Okay, she's going to give us the details because I need to know.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about realistic anime fan art. So I was originally not going to make this a video topic because I basically agree with everything that's been said, and I didn't really feel like I had anything new to add to the discourse. However, Instagram has been bombarding me with white, realistic Sailor Moon fan art, and I just can't keep quiet any longer. So can we please just stop drawing anime characters as white? Alright, so part 1. Are anime characters white? And this is a very loaded question, and there are no simple answers. There are some anime characters that are clearly supposed to be white, like Bandit Keith from Yu-Gi-Oh! However, Joey Wheeler, who has a very strong Brooklyn accent in the American dub, is supposed to be Japanese in the original. However, what I didn't know is that Pegasus is actually supposed to be American. And maybe from a Japanese perspective this makes sense, but when I watched it as a kid, I just thought he was British. And an easy way out of this question would be that anime is an art form and an art style, and not set in any sort of reality. The characters look the way they do because it not only makes them look cute, but it also shows their expressions better in a comic type form like manga. They exist in an alternate reality, and just because they're made by Japanese people doesn't mean that they're Japanese. But sadly, anime doesn't exist in a vacuum. Anime is not shielded from globalization, racism, and other real-world effects. Anime artists and fan artists, whether they like it or not, have their own biases. And I think it's worth exploring what those are in order to create a more inclusive art world. Firstly, like I said, some anime characters are white, but other anime characters look white but are actually supposed to be Japanese. Take Serena from Sailor Moon, whose Japanese name is Usagi Tsukino, but was changed to Serena when she was brought over to North America. And in fact, this is not new. Astro Boy, arguably the first anime in the States, also had their names changed. And this was done to presumably whitewash the characters in order to make them more marketable, especially with World War II sentiment still being very strong.
It was America all along. I should have known that America was at the forefront of uplifting white supremacy. Let me look at Sailor Moon again. I'm surprised people say she's Japanese because Miss Sailor looks like a white girl, honey. Just the anime white girl, right? I want to know her original design. I know they have one. She's cute though. Okay, here we go. Yeah. The manga, she looks extra white. 2014. She look a little bit darker, but I think that's just because of the different type of shading they were using back in the day. Yeah. Even though white characters had a little bit of oomph to them, you know?
Additional. Akira, go ahead, tell him what I said.
Roger, stop it.
We don't want any of your Jap crap.
And in the end, it worked. Astro Boy was a huge success in the US and paved the way for more anime to come in the future, but of course, not without some slight tweaks. A lot of Japanese iconography was changed or just ignored altogether during dubbing. I think we all remember those jelly donuts that the gang from Pokemon used to eat.
These donuts are great. Jelly-filled are my favorite. Nothing beats a jelly-filled donut.
So does that mean that Japanese people just hate themselves? No, of course not. They just see anime as more of a creative outlet. Japan is a very homogeneous society, so they see white features.
Okay, hold on. Y'all, I'm sorry for pausing every 5 seconds. Homogeneous. What's homogeneous then? Homogeneous means consistent in part or having qualities that are the same. Okay, homogeneous. You learn something new every day. I feel like homogeneous just rolls better off the tongue.
Sci-fi and fantasy elements to it, which calls for sometimes crazy hair and eye combinations that aren't just blonde and blue. Sometimes they're aliens, sometimes they're cat people, but more times than not, they're magical girls. And in fact, anime characters are so universal because they don't really have any ethnic features besides white skin, but that's for another day. And in all, people from Japan...
Wait, no, I wish you would have explained that. Because I was just about to say, like, the examples that she used of when they had different colored skin. I'm like, yeah, every time they had different colored skin, it's like they're animal. They're like animals, right? They have like this animalistic look, or like there's some things very animal. That's the only time that they will look less humanoid, is when the darker the skin tone, or the more... either it's a darker skin tone or it's a skin tone that's a little bit out there. Like, yeah, they got some characters that are like black, some characters that are like, you know, maybe they could be like Hispanic or something, like other different types of variations. But for the most part, like, if you're looking for like someone that's just regular, they have light skin. And I think for Americans, that's such a hard thing to like get out of our head, because, you know, people from other countries, they say, why don't you guys just let that go? Like, you guys are doing a little too much. But it's a hard thing to let go of when it's so built in the way that you exist in your culture and the way that you navigate in the society. Even if you're somebody who is not like you, someone who's like, oh, I don't care about like race. I don't care about race. I'm not like you guys. I don't care about race. Okay? It's still something where it's like even you have to acknowledge, okay, I do wonder why all the characters are white. Because it's hard when you are somebody who is in a country that is built off of white supremacy. I mean, I said this before. People gonna get mad, be like, "What you saying? I got a black husband." You know, people gonna be upset. But at the end of the day, that's just the truth. In the media, the foundation has always been white. So when you see something that's coming from a whole different culture, and at the default of the representation of their culture is characters who have the same skin tone, it's just different variations of face or eye color or this, it's like, isn't that still, even if it's not intentional to them, or better yet, it is the manipulation of the racist ass country that I am in, still, is that not uplifting white supremacy? Is that not uplifting whiteness? Because even though, yes, people know that's not how actual people look, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter that that's not how actual people look, because it is a humanoid, right? It is, you know, supposed to replicate aspects of humanity, right? So if I don't know, it's just something that I find interesting.
The anime characters as Japanese.
金髪の日本人。
日本人、
アニメっぽい。
わ急にうわおっぱい大きい。可愛いな。これなんだろうね。これでも日本人にしか見えなくない？でも金髪だよ。ああ、なるほどね。どういうところが日本人に見えます？細身。
And this question of are anime characters white?
They look nothing like that character. They look nothing like that character. And also, they're beautiful girls. You know, I like the hair. I like what they're giving. Right? It's really giving 2008. You know, we're taking it back. You know, they're going to a circuit party, or maybe they're going to a study meeting. They're studying. They're studying for their big exam. Or maybe they're just going out, you know, shopping. Who knows? Who knows what these girls are doing? Until next time, Gossip Girl. But honestly, it's just very interesting to witness. It's very interesting to see. I'm glad she included this clip because I'm looking at these two, and I swear I'm not saying this in a negative way, two very Asian girls. There's no denying these are Asian girls. These are Asian women, right? And we're looking at this white girl with big titties, and they're saying she's a Japanese blonde girl. How? How did we get there? I don't know. It's just a very interesting look.
細身
And this question of are anime characters white only really comes up in the West because we can't imagine a world where we're not default. And this is the problem and why we get tons of realistic white Sailor Moon fan art. So part 2, the impacts. So you're probably thinking, how does this affect me? And what does fan art have to do with it? And if you're thinking that, you've probably never been affected by systemic racism. So, like I said before, anime characters are very universal, meaning I saw myself in them. Knowing that these creations came from Asia and were made by Asian artists was amazing to me. And I saw myself in their characters in a world where movies and TV shows were lacking any sort of diversity. And seeing so much fan art of anime characters, be it Sailor Moon or not, as white just hurts. I have seen some notable works where some of the Sailor Scouts aren't white, but 9 times out of 10, Serena will be white, and that just irks me and leads to the second problem, 2. Drawing white, realistic fan versions of anime characters makes cultural appropriation okay. And because anime is so universal and does take place in alternate realities, a lot of people don't see anything wrong with borrowing from the anime aesthetic. And if you're cosplaying, that's cool. I don't care what race you are if you're cosplaying. But some celebrities are huge culture vultures and don't care about anime, don't care about Japanese culture, and just use whatever they want in order to stay relevant. And yes, I'm talking about you know who. I feel like a lot of white people who do
Not
culturally
Ariana.
appropriate anime fashion think it's okay because
I'm coming for Cynthia, I swear.
anime is just an art style and doesn't exist
The
in
way I
reality.
held that note.
And though that's true, whenever they dress in anime garb, they try to look Asian or half by either wearing slanted eyeliner or puppy dog eyeliner. And to be honest, e-girl culture is kind of stealing from the ojang look that Korean people started almost a decade ago, only further
That
emphasizing
shit
the
look
erasure
good.
of Asian beauty. We forget that anime is created by Japanese people, and we forget what they look like and what East Asian people look like in general. So let's take a moment to celebrate the creators of all of our favorite anime.
Period. Again, I wouldn't say I forgot how Asian people look. Now, I'm not going to say, oh, that's a East Asian, that's a West Asian, that's a... Like, I don't know what side of town you from, what part of the region you are from. I'm not going to say that, right? But I think it's just the disconnect that's happening is that she's saying, okay, it's just crazy how they're making Sailor Moon white. She's white. I'm trying. And nothing against her. But like, and people saying it's like, I think also the one thing that I'm confused on is like when she says Americans can't understand looking at something that doesn't reflect themselves. And that's something I think our people outside of America, they do have a big understanding of Americans. Like, you can't understand that. And I like, yes, but no. I think people inside of America can understand that, right? I think people of color inside of America can most definitely understand that. Understand in some form or fashion. I'm not gonna say everything. They are multicultural in the sense of they can understand certain things outside of the country. I do believe that that's a good critique of Americans because there is something about being in America where you are insulated within just American politics, American identity, American culture, American this, American that, right? And the different structures of the different way that we structure our society. So I do think that it's a valid critique. However, I do think that being somebody who's a person of color, being somebody who is, black, being somebody who, even is another person of color, maybe even an Asian American, understands we can appreciate people who look white. We can appreciate media that has white people in it. I can appreciate media that has Asian people. I can appreciate media that's from Nollywood, Bollywood. I can appreciate media, like nothing about that is, different. I can appreciate anime. I can appreciate that. But I think from my Black American perspective, what I'm seeing, what she's saying, people are making Sailor Moon white and people are making these characters white. And look how this one white person is sitting there trying to be Asian. I'm like, well, that's how that works in this country, That's how it works in the country. That's why I feel like people do not understand the way that race works in our country. It's the same way the whole Tyler situation. I'm not about to go back into doing that, but the whole situation like that, where people say, well, you guys talk so much about race, you talk so much about race. And I often feel that we don't really want to understand each other fully. Like, people think they know about the racial aspects of our society. They understand just how deep it goes. They say they do, especially if there's somebody who lives in America. They say, oh, we know so much about it. Yet they always act shocked when people bring up whiteness. And they always act shocked or annoyed when people bring up certain stuff, or when people are trying to recreate or repackage their culture into a white package, when that is something that has been the default of the way we see media in America for the longest time. And yes, things have changed. And yes, things have progressed. And we have other problems that we talked about, like my last video with blackfishing and all these other different things. But it's just very interesting to witness, because I'm just like, I understand what she's saying, the critique of Americans not wanting to get out of their own America's ass and being able to, see other people's perspective. But I also feel like it's very strange to just be like, yeah, but people are trying to make a character white, when no one's making the character white. The character's white. And I don't know, maybe race just works differently. Well, I do know race works differently in other countries, but it's just weird because I thought there was something that was universal around the world, where people would see somebody who's clearly white and be like, oh, that's a white person. Like, I didn't think it was as simple as, okay, if this person creates this, then they're Asian. But then see, okay. See, if that was the case, again, most of them the people creating it are Asian. So why would they just have a plethora of black people? But again, at the same time, they have a plethora of white characters, right? Like, they got some, we have a little something here, something here, something here. Well, okay, right? Something here, something here. Like, we got some stuff. Some of it, is okay. Yeah, we're gonna ignore that one. And others, it's like, they did their work, right? This one looks Blasian. And I'm like, I know they have Blasians, because I've seen a lot of Blasian influencers. Okay? I mean, I know the girls seen the Blasian girls around. I know you've seen the Blasians, and I've heard a lot of tea from the Blasian influencers, YouTubers, and social media influencers about how they get treated in certain parts. Not everywhere, but in certain parts, how they get treated by some of the Asian girlies. That on top of the racism, that on top of the skin situation, where they had certain things where they were saying, even though they are light, you have to be lighter, right? More pure. That on top of white fetishization that a lot of other Asian creators and people within, the social media field have talked about over the years. That, and then pairing that with the history of having most of the characters have white skin. I'm just, that on top of that. It's just a lot of different things working together that doesn't help this particular type of conclusion that's being made by Asian people, where it's like, yeah, but it's not.
Until you transform. Well, I heard because the manga, it's cheaper to just remove color than adding color, is why they made the hair like blonde. But then there's the green eyes. And it's like,
how many natural Japanese people do you know with
blonde hair? What?
Green
okay.
eyes.
All right. But anyway.
これでもこっちの方が日本人だと思ったっけ なんか清楚そうなところ。
もう全部日本人に見えるからな。日本人です。
These are like really popular current anime characters. I don't even. Well, to be completely honest, I haven't been following. I have no idea, but we haven't been following anime like that.
If you draw a character with blonde hair and blue eyes, but you say, well, they're Japanese. But if you draw a character with black skin, they're black.
No, but
Right?
like if you draw, dude, there's no way you could draw a
can't say
character.
that-
There's no natural blonde hair, blue eyed Japanese person.
Exactly, and there's no natural character that's gonna look like have like what's his name? The anime that we both hate that they just released on Netflix.
Yasuke.
Yasuke, that's what it is. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Like, bro, there's no way you'd be like, oh, that's a Japanese character, right? The same
Yeah.
way, like if you're gonna stretch.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to say. But we move on.
That's what
Right,
you're saying.
you're stretching it out. Well,
Yeah.
blonde hair, but the style is Japanese.
Yeah.
Therefore, this character could be Japanese.
Yeah,
and
no, that
I'm-
character
yeah.
strikes me as it could be Japanese as well.
But I mean, I'm not gonna say that every character is drawn in a way that's gonna be leaning towards European or not. But whatever.
白人が多分日本がなんて言うんだろう、外国人の方が綺麗とかちょっと憧れがそうで多分キャラ自体をそっちにしてる気がする。
I mean, dudes just said that Japanese people admire white people, and that's no
That's
no secret to us. You know?
See, now finally it's coming from the source. It's coming the words. Yeah. You know, this is something that you have to really talk about, right? Because like I said, right? I said it doesn't make sense for most of the characters to be white looking. It doesn't make sense for people who are already naturally light to want to be white when you're already light. You're just a different version of light, right? And when we talk about anti-blackness in the Asian community, and when we talk about colorism in the Asian community, when we talk about all of that shit, it's like, yeah, I'm not surprised that you guys feel the need to make most of your anime characters Caucasian, right? Even if it's fantasy. And I'm also getting tired of this whole thing about it's the eyes. You guys are focusing on the eyes. We're focusing on the whole package, however it may, be. Focusing on the whole package, and the whole package is saying, white woman! Especially the women. It's very interesting.
Like you have
I mean,
to
having-
see a billboard in Japan.
Yeah, I
Have you
mean,
ever-
that was gonna be my main argument. Is like we've lived in Japan for 12 years now.
Yeah.
And only recently I've been seeing more ethnic people, or more variety of people on billboards and ads and magazines and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But even in that situation, Japan is 99% Japanese.
Yeah.
It always astounded me that the majority of their ads are white people.
Now we have the truth. Anti-blackness wins again. Oh, goodness gracious.
Overwhelming.
That don't make no sense to me. I'm sorry. It's the same type of stuff that I argue when we're sitting there talking about people who come from homogeneous, that's how you say, homogeneous society where most of the people that's around them look like them, and they still prioritize whiteness, or they still prioritize a lighter package. Like, it's a very insidious reality when we're talking about white supremacy, because I feel like when we're talking about different things online, people think white supremacy becomes a buzzword. It's one of those things where you say it over and over and over again that it begins to sound like mush, or the first person says it to the second person, but by the time they get to the 100th person, we done changed the word I don't know how many different times. Like, it feels like it gets lost in meaning. The same way woke was turned into something different by the conservatives, right? It's just this thing where I feel like when people hear white supremacy, they're thinking something that is so in your face, in terms of like violence, you know, that white people would do to black people, or that people would do where they were just like beating people down. There's genocide, it's like stuff like that, like something where it's like visceral, something where you can't deny, you can't turn away. But in many ways, it is systematic, right? In many ways, it sneaks into the media. The media is a very specific tool that has been used to uplift white supremacy without having to be, you know, outwardly racist, without little subtle things that they would do. Little subtle things that they would have. That's why I always say it's very interesting that you would have person of color and then their love interest will always be a white person, or you would have like an established show and then they would have a person of color, they would go through something, then they would sit there and they would go to another person who's another love interest, that would be another person of color, that will fall apart, then they'll just go back to wanting to have a relationship with the white person that was established in the beginning of the show. And I've seen that pattern within certain films and certain shows. I've seen that pattern, and I said it's insidious to me because whether it's intentional by the creators or not, there is a way where maybe subconsciously, because, you know, maybe white people, they you know, they're so used to seeing themselves in media that even when they're trying to be diverse, it is difficult to try to wiggle out or wring out that tendency to constantly feel the need to at least put themselves into the picture, right? But it's even more bewildering when we're talking about media outside of the West, when we're talking about places where you don't have to do that, and still the only reason they do it, I guess, is because it makes them feel better because of white supremacy. But they would die on this hill that that's not the case. They would die on the hill that it's not anti-blackness, it's not self-hate. But it's just so strange to me that you can see that in many aspects all around the world, and so many cultures around would be like, we don't complain like you black Americans. We don't go around whining and pouting about white supremacy. We get it in the mud. We get what we have to do. We do what we have to do. We don't go whining. We don't see those things. We don't see race. That's another big one that I've seen with a lot of people outside of America, and that's getting tired. That's getting tired. We don't see race. You may not see race the same, but you most definitely see race. You most definitely see race, and I'm getting a little sick and tired. This is not even just for the Asian country. This is like for everybody. I'm getting a little sick and tired of hearing people go around and make it seem like America is the only one that talks about race or is aware of race, right? Because race is so heavily embedded within our culture, within our history, within how we developed as a nation. But it's just so funny to me how everybody else is like, well, considering that we don't talk about it that way, we don't worry about race. Yes, the fuck you do. It's really tired. It's really fucking tired. Anyway.
Overwhelmingly white people. You're trying to appeal to the 99% of your populace.
Yeah.
With
a
white person.
I have a dog, so when I go to the vet, who is holding the dog?
A white person. And do you go into
you go to the dentist?
Yeah, you go there, bro. Little white baby looking at me. Little white baby over there, blonde hair, blue eyes, talking about brush your teeth. And I've just always been like,
the more you brush, the whiter you become.
I guess.
I think the West dominates online media a lot. Mm-hmm. And they impose their standards and their issues on everyone else.
Yeah.
Meaning the way that they feel about a certain topic and the problems that they have, they feel like everyone else must be dealing with in the same way. Mm-hmm. In Japan, with their context and their history, right? They look at these characters and they see themselves or they see other Japanese people when they look at it. When we look at it, we see a symbol of white supremacy, all this.
But it's not.
But it doesn't make it true. And considering that they invented it, right? That they make this stuff, I do think there's a bit of arrogance in the sense that we think everything revolves around us. And we impose our ideas on people over things that they themselves made. Right?
It's a white person!
I do think that Westerners do have a very centralist attitude, especially Americans. You know, Americans think the entire world revolves around them. Like, if Americans feel a particular way, then the rest of the world should feel this way. But coming as someone that has lived in Japan for 12 years and have spoken to other Japanese people that have lived here as long, Japan kind of has a liking towards white people. When you get they're looking for jobs and they're like, hey, we want a white person for this job, and you just got to deal with it. Or they think that you're not American because you're black.
Okay, I don't mean to get canceled or anything, but
Okay.
I thought black people from Africa. So I thought America.
Actually,
United
no. Okay. Wait. I don't want to segue this into something else. This could be for something, a whole other video. But I was so confused because I've seen so many videos, and I might do a reaction to it where there would be like a black person coming into like this room, right? Like little reaction videos, right? And you know, they do it in America, they do it everywhere. And I think it's like a cultural thing, but like they'll have a black person and then it'll be like an Asian dude. He'll be like, "You're so beautiful." Huh? And at first I was like, yeah, you know, black women, they are, you know. Then after a while I was kind of like, okay, like, you've seen black people before. Like, you're dressing like a black person. Like, stop playing with me. Like, after a while, it's like, you've seen blacks before. Like, come on now. Like, oh my gosh. Like, if you've seen white people, and you have white people in your media, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, how many white people live in Japan? How many white people live in Korea? How many white people, I mean, yes, visit. Yes, so I guess maybe there's a marketability to it, like maybe trying to tap into a market for a tourist. So maybe I'm like, okay, make them a little bit more comfortable. But even then, I'm just like, yeah, if you've seen them, you've surely seen the other people, right? That's why people get upset about it and they say it's an American thing and American are pushing their ideas. But when you live in a country that is so heavily built off of race and so heavily built off of those certain ideas, it's hard not to notice certain tendencies and different types of media in other countries because you're so conditioned to see it. You're so conditioned, like you grew up looking at that. You grew up, that's a different type of reality that you have. And so when you see other people do it and they say, that's not true, it's like, well, what's the tea? That there was an issue, and one of the YouTubers, I'm gonna add them in the title, where they did sit there and talk about how it is very problematic that, you know, they had made Sailor Moon white in America. They wanted to use Sailor Moon in America. They wanted to change stuff. But even then, her assessments was odd because I guess people don't understand race, right? I guess, or they see race differently. I'm like, they really didn't do anything to me that was seen as something that was detrimental because already you gave them a white package. You already gave them somebody that is a white version of what you have. So that's how that works. That's how that translates when you're coming to America. How do you present is not only based off of the features of your face and other things, but it's also based off of the color of your skin. The color of your skin is to solidify everything else that comes with that, to solidify every assumption that comes with that. So if you have white skin, small nose, certain things that is associated with the race, then you are going to be considered white. That's just how it works. And I find it interesting how other people, they die on this hill that that's not the same where they're from and that's not true how they see it. And I say, okay, fine. Okay. It's just interesting. It's also interesting, again, the very up forwardness, I guess is what I'm going to say. Up forwardness of blackness, right? Because when you're black, suddenly it changes. Suddenly the political is different. And I said, that's what I'm trying to say. That whiteness in itself is so interesting because somehow it can be, you can have different variations of white. But if you are somebody who is black, suddenly it's like, I don't know, this is too much. Suddenly we can't do it. Suddenly it's difficult. Suddenly, and it's like, it's interesting. It's just interesting, right? Now let's see. I'm going to look at some more. Are anime characters white and why? Okay, that's Shinlin. Okay, are anime characters white? Let's look at this. This is 3 years ago. Okay.
Hey, what is up, everyone? Nikki Kanjin here, and today we are going to find out the truth if anime characters are really white. So smash that like button for the sushi gods of YouTube as we explore this not so simple question. Now, while at first glance, these characters tend to have a pale skin and larger than normal eyes. But why
It's
is
not
this?
the eyes! It's not because the eyes are big! Oh my goodness. I am so tired of hearing about how big the eyes are. No, like, it's not because the eyes are big. I don't know why that's being used to solidify. Maybe the eye shape. We could talk about that. But the eyes being big, I mean, Americans cannot talk about characters having big ass eyes. Lord knows, we have a whole thing having big ass eyes in our characters, especially Disney.
Subconsciously, Japanese people feel some kind of complex, and hence they draw more characters that look more characteristically white. Or is it because of something completely different that has nothing to do with the idolization of white people? And really, it's only those people from outside of Japan who view anime characters as white. And let's be clear, when anime really wants to point out...
That's not true. Those other people view those two characters as Russian. And there's not only white people in Russia. There isn't, right? But you know what the fuck they were talking about.
Character who's white, they make it really, really obvious.
You can't beat me because I'm an American. See what I mean?
Okay, so why then in anime do they have such big eyes and pale skin? That's a great question, because in the past, pale skin would be seen as someone who was of a higher status. And this is because those people of lower status would regularly work out in the fields being laborers, so their skin would be naturally darker. And this trend has carried on in Japan's society even today, which makes pale skin quite popular among many Japanese people. Now onto the big eyes that you traditionally see in Japanese anime. And the reason for this is because it actually started from this one man, Osamu Tezuka. So he was initially inspired by Walt Disney's first animated movies and short films, and he in turn adapted the kind of like big-eyed style of Daffy Duck or Mickey Mouse and kind of formed his own style based on it. And because Osamu Tezuka is basically regarded as the founder and creator of anime and manga,
I've heard a lot about
people
him.
after him kind of followed this same style. So now what a lot of other anime creators found was that the characters having large eyes, they were able to convey emotion through them without having to change the pose or stance of a character, which in turn saved them a ton of money. And there was another cultural reason for this though, why traditionally anime characters have big eyes. Because in the West, although people convey emotions through their body language and through direct communication by saying what they mean, this isn't the case in the East. But in Eastern countries, people don't show their emotions as... Okay, so let me know in the comment section down below, which is why you will often see the protagonist have large eyes while
the eyes being large, that's not the reason.
Perception actually says a lot about us as a society. Unlike countries like maybe the US and the UK, Japan is not very much of a melting pot country. Thus, the majority of the people you will see on the street are, in fact, East Asian, if not just straight up Japanese. Therefore, in Japan, if you were to go up to someone and ask what a standard person looks like, they would probably say Japanese. Meanwhile, here in the West, we seem to operate under the assumption that if it's pale, it's white until proven otherwise. And it's not very hard to figure out why. Only 12 of the 2015 Maxim's Hot 100 women were not white or white passing. Denzel Washington is the only non-white man to be named Sexiest Man Alive. And in 2014, only 1/4 of Hollywood film actors were not white. With that kind of multi-ethnic representation, it's no wonder that even when anime characters are specifically described as Japanese, people still incorrectly assume that they're white. Even when the entirety of the story takes place in Japan, Hollywood still casts the entire main cast as white people. I mean, you could have gotten.
Oh my gosh, that was funny as hell. It was even more funny how Asian people were upset about that. Yeah, a good amount of Asian people would defend the fact that they still want to put majority white-looking people into their anime. But it was so funny when that came out. That was so interesting.
Scarlett Johansson. That's about it.
Our Asian queen.
Yeah. Now, I can already hear the typing with the, but anime eyes are so big, they couldn't belong to Asian people. Well, Chica.
Who has said that? Who has said this?
Gosh, I mean, it's not like it's at all possible.
Oh my gosh, is that actually something that people have said? I have never. People think that. People think that the characters are not Asian because of their big eyes. I'm like, that's not the reason people don't think they're Asian. Surely. Okay. I just feel like it's so frustrating because like you're halfway there, but maybe we could talk about the shape of the eyes, and then that can lead into racism, stereotypes. That can lead into a whole bunch of different things, right? And then that's a whole other type of fragile debate. But to sit there and say because it's big, I don't understand where that came from. But again, I'm not so heavily into the Asian community, but into the anime community. So maybe that is something that people have said where they're just like, their eyes are so big, they can't be, but it's like, okay, I don't know. I don't know why.
Asians to have big eyes. Not at all. And it's totally impossible for ethnic Europeans to have small eyes. I mean, really. But they have blondes in the animes. Yeah, and they also have people with naturally pink hair. So what's your point? The fact that we think this way does not inherently make us bad people. This is all because of a lie perpetrated by our entertainment industry that has been spoon-fed to us since the day we were born. By this point, that lie has burrowed its way into our subconsciouses in a way that we cannot just get rid of it by just flicking it away. And this is not just a white people thing. This is also for everyone who has ever felt insecure or inadequate because you have a different skin tone or face shape from ethnically European people. We are all going to have to work together to change that. Those of us in the entertainment industry are going to have to work to include a more ethnically accurate ratio in our creations without relying on harmful stereotypes. And if you're not in the industry, you need to please go out and support the people who are working to fix that ratio. But then again, maybe I'm just crazy. Goku's totally white. I mean, look how realistic his eyes are. Come back next week. Bye.
Okay. I mean, that's fine. Many anime characters are clearly white. They have white skin, round eyes, narrow and pointy nose, narrow jawlines, and sometimes red, blonde, or brown hair. Of course, not all anime characters are white, but many clearly are, which is why people wonder why. Now, some people might try to say that anime characters are aracial, imaginary humans with no race, but that's not the case either because some are clearly depicted to have a race, as in the case of Black American characters. The question is, why is Serena clearly white? Why are so many Ghibli characters at least depicted with white skin and European features, even in historical fiction based in Japan, like from Up and On Poppy Hill? I don't know, friend. I don't know. I don't know. The girlies don't want to acknowledge. The girlies want to. And it's been really like itching my brain because I've been sitting here like, I feel like I'm being gaslit. I'm like, but they're white. Not all of them are white because I've seen characters that look Asian. I just need to figure out what it, because it's not just the eye shape. I need to figure out what is it. Is it the haircut? Something there that's like, this character looks Asian. I don't know what it is yet. But I've seen it, especially when I'm talking about Nausicaa, where the princess, she looks white. She's a white woman. But some of the characters behind her, I don't know if it's the eye shape or the design, they would look Asian. They would. And so I would be confused. And I sat there and I let it sit. I didn't acknowledge it first, right away. But I would sit there and I'd be like, that's crazy. That's crazy to me how this person is Asian. And the main character is white. And I'm like, and then I feel like it's just a cop-out. Fantasy is a cop-out for so many different things, right? Now, someone could say, well, you guys are having debates about black elves and black Vikings and stuff. We don't have that over here. And it's just like, well, if it's all about fantasy, then why was it such a struggle to show black people? Why was it such a struggle to show people of different cultural backgrounds? If it's such a fantasy, we're living in fantasy, we have no problems showing people with different skin tones, different skin features. And the only time in a lot of animes, let's be real, the only time they would want to show somebody with different skin tones is when they're more animalistic. And black people, speaking about the connections to Disney, black people already know the audacity of how Disney likes to sit there and treat black people. Because let's say, what was one of the movies, Soul? That was a depressing ass movie. And I love Jamie Foxx, but his ass a coon. Girl, like a lot of these niggas, I don't got time. They would sit there and have a whole trope within Disney films. It's like, especially with Princess and the Frog, where they would have us be fucking animals most of the fucking movie. Last time I checked, Snow White wasn't sitting there turning into a fucking bluebird half of the fucking movie. And it's like, well, Alex, that's different. That's back in the day. But Soul is it's not the most recent film, but it's still in the current, the modern era. And so it's crazy to me because we're so used to being animals. Then when you see other people do it, it's like, why is it every time? Yes, they have other characters that now more characters that are black. Yes, more characters that have blacks, skin that are, yes. But a good amount of times I was just looking at it. I'm like, why is that character? Why? Why is that character white? Are these characters white or black? Okay, that's not anime. Why Japanese worship white Caucasian, white supremacy? Okay. Question mark. They don't worship white people. They don't. Okay. Let's see what he's gonna say. I don't think they do. Okay, I don't think that they all just together worship white people in the traditional sense, in the way that Americans would see it. Right? But do I think that something's going on up there that prioritize white? Yes. That little history that they said, where they were talking about how people were out in the fields and they were darker skinned and they would get treated less than, and there was a caste system where people were light skinned. I'm thinking to myself, where did you guys even get that from? Because that seems suspicious in itself. And if that was something that was developed truly by them, that was just something that they saw, I'm still kind of like, because it's difficult for me when I'm looking at history, especially when talking about white supremacy, anti-blackness, colorism, all this shit that exists in this world to this day, seen around multiple cultures around the fucking world to this day, right? The fact that certain demographics are light skinned is not because of something that it's just, oh, this is how it happened. Because it was strategic in certain areas, like let's say Brazil, to have a good amount of people cleanse out the blackness within their family. So it's very interesting to me because when I'm hearing this stuff, the reason I'm passionate about it is I'm trying to find a connection on how that works. Because even though that is something that I do believe obviously is a part of their history, why would they lie? I'm still thinking to myself, how did that, and then all the Europeans had to do was come in, but then even then there's a good amount of history where some parts, not all, Europeans did sit there and mistreat Asian people and kill Asian people, and they did not see them as white. What is it they said in this bitch ass country? Yellow and red. Yellow. That was an interesting one they came up with.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Sashi. Welcome back to my channel.
Hey,
and
Sashi.
Today in this video, I wanted to explain why there is a phenomena called a white or Caucasian supremacy in Japan. I was born and then grew up in Japan.
I ain't gonna lie. He kind of cute. I don't know.
Years of my life. And I moved to Canada and the United States.
Got a nice little buzz cut.
7.5 years. And based on my actual living experience in Japan, going through Japanese education, being exposed to Japanese media, TV commercials, magazines, manga, anime, even movies. Why did you think there are so many Japanese fantasizing or having the fetish or having that ideal fantasizing about a Caucasian ethnicity? What do you guys think? Do you think it's bullshit or do you think it's actually true? Do you think this is like a real
You tell us, Fred. You tell us.
That's happening to most Japanese people? And my answer as a Japanese-born Japanese is yes, of course. And most of the reason why people in Japan think that Caucasian people are attractive, or put more correctly, most of the reasons why Japanese are conditioned by society and mass media to think or fantasize about Caucasian people is because they've been exposed to that through the media. And one of the biggest examples that I can give you is that almost all the Japanese people watch Studio Ghibli movies. And Studio Ghibli's, one of them has even won Academy Award. So it's not Japan-wide a famous movie, but it's worldwide a really excellent movies. And if you look at that, pay close attention to kind of characters are in Ghibli movies. For example, Sento Chihiro no Kamikakushi, or Kiki, Delivery Kiki, if the one before Rabbiter.
Not Miyazaki catching strays. That's interesting. Because that's interesting that Miyazaki would even really have characters that look like that, considering how he doesn't really like America. Like, he's talked so much about how he doesn't like America and how America's annoying, and obviously because of the war that he had to experience, that shit. Yeah, so, I can't even come for him, not liking America, but it's just so strange to me how he would still have characters that look white. And I know that a good amount of how you see America is white, but the only time we have any hesitancy to show anything else is with black. Or with any, fuck just black. I mean, the other people, the Hispanics, the other people out there with different cultures and shit, they have other different skin tones. It's not just black and white. Like, everybody has various different types of skin tones. I never really understood. I mean, I understand, like, he's going to get into it. But I understand, like, white supremacy and all of this stuff. I understand how it works. But I think the reason I hate white supremacy, not white people. Oh, Lord. Here we go. White supremacy, not white people. Some white people. You hate white. You hate white people. No, white supremacy. Not white people. Okay? If we can't critique white supremacy and you feel offended, I can't help you, friend. I can't help you, and that's white people, they're going to feel some type of way. I can't help you. I don't know what to do with you. I don't know. I'm not going to just go up to you and be like, oh, slavery. I'm not going to talk about, obviously, there's a time and there's a place. I ain't just going to go up to you and be like, we were slaves. I'm not going to do that. No. I'm not going to do that, friend. But when we're sitting there talking about, how this works, that's why I always come for white supremacy the way I do, because when I say it's insidious, when I say it's demonic, when I say it's insidious and sad how successful it was, people think I'm doing too much. And I said it does not make sense to prioritize one race. It makes no fucking sense whatsoever. Considering how, that one race was trying to take everybody else's shit. They couldn't have their own. And so a good amount of times they try to take other people. And even when they were technically more developed, they still needed to use other people to help their development. How you had to bring some other people in to sit there and do the shit for you and you can't do it yourself, and then have this whole facade that you're somehow more hardworking in America and also everywhere else around the world. No, not quite, no. Yes, but no. Because yes, there are a lot of hardworking white people. Like, I'm not gonna say, oh, they're all lazy, because that's not true. There's a lot of hardworking white people, but at the same time, not to the point where it's like, oh, they were just all hardworking around the world simultaneously. No, that's not the case. Scratch that. Cut that out. Right? I don't know.
Totoro, they're using Japanese characters, but after that, moving Castle How, almost all the movies in Ghibli, they're using Caucasian characters as their own main characters. And we've been exposed to that, and it so happened to be Caucasian, not Asian, not black, not like brown people, but Caucasian.
And you know, the thing is, it doesn't have to, like he said in one of the other movies that he said, I'm sorry for pausing so much, it doesn't even have to be black. Like, that's the thing. Yes, the blackness is a part of it, because anti-blackness is a part of the conversation, because it is somehow all around the world. But it didn't even have to be black. Like, there were characters that looked Asian. Like, the newest, the most recent film from Studio Ghibli, he kind of went back. He took it back. He said, I'm going to take it back, and I'm going to go to a design that's a little bit more Asian. Right? And unfortunately, it just so happened to be in a movie that a lot of people feel very split on, because The Boy and the Heron, a lot of people was like, I liked it, I didn't like it, it was good, you know, people felt some type of way about it. But at the end of the day, I just find it so fucking frustrating, because it wasn't the fact that you didn't have to even really do anything that was like black. You didn't have to be so inclusive, right? It's just weird, because it's like, I think it's unfortunate, and what's disturbing to people in America is that as a black American, there's a reason why we think the way we think. And yes, sometimes it does get annoying. Sometimes you always talk about race. Like let's move on. But there's a certain way of existing that's the reason why. And so when you're from a particular type of place where most of the people in power, most of the people with influence, most of the people who pull the strings, most of the people in your society, in your media, they are representative of you, it's very strange then to see in the media how you introduce white people.